watched a clip from Cory Booker, and finally, one of the candidates in the presidential primary has thrown a punch. Up to this point, for the most part, they've been gloves off, and even this punch that's thrown is somewhat of a veiled punch, but it's a punch nonetheless, and so I'm covering it because it's the first differentiation that's done in a way that is a little bit more aggressive than this kind of ghost-like, non-committal. It's like two bishops of opposite colors in politics. But in this case, each candidate, a bishop of an opposite color, as if you had like 1,000 colors. None of them hitting each other, even though all of them are supposed to find some level of differentiation in order for the public to make a choice. It's a primary. It's just a primary. What is it? This is not a coronation. This is not a beauty pageant. This is politics, where you are trying to get across to the public who you are, so the public can make a choice on who they want and who they best believes can pull back the reins on the political system. Now, I tend to think that this election is extraordinarily important, but it's a fair point to say that many people during certain points in history thought the election was extremely important. It's just this is the first time in my lifetime when somebody like Sanders is running in the race, and that Sanders is one of the front runners in the race. I watched the clip that I'm about to show you. I watched bits and pieces of it. I have a hard time watching Cory Booker. I have a hard time watching Cory Booker because Cory Booker looks like he's acting when he's doing a speech. And it looks like he's pumping himself up in this unnatural way. It's like he's injected himself with the Bane serum. He's like, he's like raging out as he's giving the speech. And he seems so intense. It's like he was going to hit somebody. He's terrifying me. I'm fucking shivering as I'm watching him doing the speech. He's not even talking to me. Like, it's just bizarre to me. It's always weird to me. Now, to be fair to Cory Booker, I would give him the benefit of the doubt. Not like that. That's not what I mean. I would give him the benefit of the doubt in the sense of this. It is possible that what comes across as him pumping himself up in order to do whatever he's doing on the stage, answering these questions for the town hall, that this is his public face. Like, this is the face that he's chosen to deal with the public on. In the same way that Jake Tapper chooses to deal with the public with Jake Tapper's, newsman's face, or me dealing with the public with my hat. It's his persona that he uses to address the public to make himself more comfortable so his inner self remains somewhat peaceful and untouched by what is going to be a ton of scorn that is going to be thrown his way, some of which by yours truly. Also, second point. Running in a primary like this is complicated, right? By definition. You need to do two things. You need to show me, or one main thing, you need to show me how you're different than the other candidates. By the same token, anything that you say that's critical, which most or a lot of differentiation is some degree critical, even if it's not necessarily critical in the overt sense. But oftentimes it's used as this is a deficiency in the other individual that I have in spades. This guy wants to go bombing a bunch of people. I don't want to go bombing a bunch of people. I think bombing those people are wrong. So if you think bombing those people are wrong, then you think the position of the other individual is somewhat off, right? Well, I'm not saying that. Then what are you saying? I'm going around Robin Hood's behind. Basic point that I'm getting at here is Cory Booker is making somewhat of a swipe at these candidates. These candidates are in a difficult situation because anything that they say is going to be used against them in the general election itself. Not just in the general election, in Republican politics, where they're going to bring up the fact that this guy said this about that guy, and now we want those two guys to fight, and whatever you say will be used against you in the general. So it's not the easiest thing in the world to figure out a way to run in a primary like this where you don't necessarily do something to damage yourself in the general. So fair enough. I understand the complexities associated. I get at least from the degree that I can understand it, some of the complexities associated just in this kind of bare bones model of we need to run, we need to create differentiation, but if it's too stark and if it's too aggressive in the way we create that differentiation, it will be used against me later on if my opponent attacks me in a similar way, in which case we need to rein back in our attacks on one another. I hope I'm making sense with that. I'm trying to explain why I think they've taken on this model of non-attacks. And even in the sense where Cory Booker is taking a swipe, the swipe is veiled. He's not saying who it is, even though it's very clear who it is, seeing as it can only be two people who, it's like a very limited select group of senators, 100 of them. So if you're talking about two that just so happen to be on a radio show, then we can pretty much narrow down who those are. One, Mr. Bernie Sanders, and one, Senator Kamala Harris. Here's the catch. Cory Booker flips out over levity between Kamala Harris in the Breakfast Club and Bernie Sanders in the Breakfast Club on this question of marijuana. And he gets really animated and hulks out on this idea of these guys are being, easygoing and joking about using pot. But there are several people, thousands, that are resting in prisons right now because of use of the drug. Or not use of the drug, use of a political system that criminalizes use of the drug. He also kind of makes these points of various stats, like, all of the crime combined, all of the violent crime combined, or drug crime, arrests for marijuana outstripes all other violent crimes combined. That's, when you think of that number, a number of those people being locked up and processed, some of those people are not going to be able to afford a good lawyer. Some of those people are going to be put in prison. Some of those people are going to lose their ability to get jobs, living in certain situations. Like, it is going to ruin their life. So I understand being pissed off about this. It just seems like me don't think the lady or the gentleman protest too much. That's all. It's like, yes, it's a big deal. You're flipping out over a levity moment. Let me show you the moment that I'm talking about, and I'm going to show you his response to this. Let me show you Bernie Sanders first.
Legalizing marijuana, and how can we ensure that African Americans get in on, because it seems like we're getting kind of blacked out in many ways.
That's a very good question. The answer is...
Yeah, they're saying you need a lot of assets, you need a lot of liquid to invest in.
Even be able to get a license.
Well, this touches on the issue we have been discussing. Number one,
and we were so affected by these marijuana laws.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Okay, so two answers. I believe in the legalization of marijuana. Right now, you have a federal Controlled Substance Act in Washington that says you're caught with heroin, he's caught with marijuana. It's both the same level. That's insane, okay? So I believe in the legalization of marijuana, which, by the way, will be a major step forward in the struggle for a fairer, a less racist criminal justice system. Number two, your point. There are large corporations, your point, that are going to be making a whole lot of money. Suddenly, 10 years ago, everyone was demonizing marijuana. Mm-hmm. Now these guys are going to make $1 zillion off it. And you're right. Small business people in the African-American community deserve to be part of that process.
Have you ever smoked?
A few times.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Didn't do a whole lot for me. My recollection is I nearly coughed my brains out, so it's not my cup of tea.
So you think...
All right, so that's Sanders. Have you done pot before? Yes, a while ago. I coughed my brains out. I never believe these answers. I have to be honest. I'm somewhat distrustful of people who haven't tried it. Only because from this perspective, of all the virtues of life, of all the things that make a life, the perspective of individuals that are within a context or within a particular life, their perspective is valid, whoever that particular person is. It doesn't necessarily mean they're right. It just means that their perspective is what their perspective is. People who smoke, or people who have smoked, or people who have done, LSD or acid or pot, that perspective to some degree is valid. And the perspective of the world that it gives you is a little bit of skew, but a skew in a way that's sometimes fascinating and give insights. I don't know. It's of all the things in life that you can experience, why limit yourself in this way? Nevertheless, let's look at Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris was more odd or weird in general. Let's take a look at this.
So you didn't lock up parents when their kids didn't go to school. I'm just trying to clear up all the BS.
Yeah, no.
Also, and I know the answer to this too, they say you oppose legalizing weed.
That's not true.
I know.
and look, I joke about it, half joking. Half my family's from Jamaica. Are you kidding me?
Her dad didn't like that joke at all. In fact, her dad sent a strongly worded letter denouncing her for this letter. I mean, denouncing her for saying that, somewhat of a racist stereotype that Jamaicans are pot smokers. And, somebody was kind of making this point that Kamala Harris be automatically searched at the airport, seeing as she's Jamaican. All right, so those are the you heard them for yourself. Those were the two conversations from senators discussing this particular topic, marijuana. All right, let's go to Cory Booker's response to this, because I thought his response was overblown. Like, I understand his I feel him on the tragedy of this. I mean, there's a human total, a human calamity associated with this. It was a racist policy in its inception. Lock up blacks and hippies. Okay, not totally racist, but an aspect of it looked to lock up blacks and hippies in order to kind of block these two groups from coming together. For the longest time, they've believed that, the Black Power movement or the African American or Civil Rights movement had to do with this kind of communistic tendencies. So they were trying to break up these movements. Let's take a listen to Cory Booker. Let's let Cory Booker do his thing.
I have a question about your.
You flipped. Sir, to educate marijuana on the federal level. We thousands of things you can't. Taxes in your creates the incentives for teachers to go into professions like public education. Thank you. All right, I'm going to go to the gentleman in the back. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
With the cool glasses, man. What's your name, sir? Jonathan, nice to meet you.
I have a question about your ideas on prison reform. In lieu of certain states trying to make weed a recreational drug, how do you feel about nonviolent criminal offenders? What is your viewpoints on that?
So a lot of people have a very different perspective on marijuana than I do. And when I was in Stanford, people smoking weed and not having any worries about what the effect it might have in their lives. We have presidential candidates and congresspeople and senators that now talk about their marijuana use almost as if it's funny.
Ooh, Cory Booker getting real. It's not that they're talking about it like it's funny. Kamala Harris's was weird because she got into a giggle fit when somebody asked her about pot. Mind you, she has been locking up stoners the entire time she was Attorney General in California. It's not that they were laughing. I don't remember Sanders laughing at all. And it's not that they were making that was funny. Think about for the first time you smoked pot. Hell, the third time that you smoked pot. Was it funny? Did you have a good time? I don't know anybody who smokes pot to have a bad time. Cory Booker seems to be looking for an issue, and this seems to be his issue, but he seems to be hyping himself up for this particular issue, even though I agree with what he's talking about in regards to the bill that he's talking about supporting or backing. Let's let him make his point.
But meanwhile, in 2017, we had more arrests for marijuana possession in this country than all the violent crime arrests combined. And what happens to people who are arrested for marijuana? First of all, who gets arrested? Poor people, and way disproportionately people of color. There's no difference in America between blacks and whites for using marijuana or even selling marijuana, but blacks are about 4 times more likely to be arrested for it. And so in Newark, the margins for error for my kids to experiment with drugs like people often do, that margin is not there. And then one kid gets one charge.
I'm not going to play the entirety of this because I have to be honest. Cory Booker is somewhat insufferable to me. I don't understand the bee in his bonnet. I have to be honest. I've watched this video multiple times, and every time I watch this video, I think, What is what is his issue? That they bought up, that they smoke pot? Somebody asked Bernie Sanders and Kamala Harris a question about pot. Kamala Harris and Bernie Sanders answered that question. What question would have been sufficient, or what answer would have been sufficient for Cory Booker to not go on this particular rant about the two candidates bringing it up? This is kind of what I mean when I just see this seems phony. I understand you're laughing at Kamala Harris, but you said plural, meaning you're including Sanders in that, meaning it can't be Kamala Harris's laugh that's the distinctive thing, because otherwise you would have just said Kamala Harris. You added both. You added multiple candidates. The question becomes, what answer would have been sufficient to Cory Booker where Cory Booker would have believed this topic had enough reverence for him that the people couldn't have taken it the way that they've taken it. This is just a bizarre thing. And I have to be honest. If this
for possession
is
of marijuana, for doing...
If of all the things that are wrong that you can kind of attach your name to, Bernie Sanders, he's a socialist. He's going after domestic issues. Elizabeth Warren, she's going after bankers. She's going to hunt down bankers on the day that she gets elected president. Tulsi Gabbard, she wants to rein in the military-industrial complex. She wants to stop these foreign interventionist wars. I can identify what each of these individuals are bringing to the table with regards to what they want to do in the office. Couldn't do that with Clinton. Can't do that with Booker. And it seems to be in Booker's bonnet with all of the larger issues that are looming. Climate change, the ability of people to get access to the things that they need, seeing as bills are going up, healthcare is going up, and their wages aren't going anywhere. Not to mention, like I said, climate change. And Cory Booker's, the biggest thing he can come up with is that these guys bought a pot in a way that didn't have the reverence that Cory Booker himself believed it deserved. I'm sorry, this is laughable. Utterly laughable. Let's see who's here. There are people here. All right. Cory is not in the house. Cory is not in the house indeed. I hold out the possibility that I could be wrong about Cory Booker. That this, what I consider to be false dramatics, these kind of pseudo-dramatics, if these are indeed just the way he goes and addresses the world, and he's being completely earnest, then I'm sorry. But I don't think that's true. I don't think that apology is ever going to get actualized. Anthony Pineza, I want some of the chamomile infused toilet paper that they got in Venezuela. We don't have that here. Though what? We have chamomile infused toilet paper here. In fact, we have aloe infused. So, there's that. BC and Falls, he's just another cheerleader. Yes. Cozy notifications never happen. Oh, that fucking sucks. Joseph Cicada, did he name Bernie in that comment? Yes, he said senators. He said we have senators who've been talking about marijuana. I'm putting the video there so you can see it for yourself. I will even play it again for you. But he named senators plural, not just Kamala Harris. And by the way, we only have a limited number of senators, and even a smaller subset of that's running for president. So,
Marijuana than I do. And when I was in Stanford, people smoking weed and not having... Number two is we are going to give teachers the benefits of our education. Thank you. 2017, we had more arrests for marijuana possession in this country. Have a very different perspective on marijuana than I do. And when I was in Stanford, people smoking weed and not having any worries about what the effect it might have in their lives. We have presidential candidates and congresspeople and senators that now talk about their marijuana use.
Just so we clear, there was an S. Senators. We only have 100 of them. And we only have fewer still that are running in the race. And unless he's making some kind of, separation there that I am completely unaware of, Cory Booker has just thrown a slow-moving punch at Kamala Harris and Bernie Sanders. I really do think they have a no-hit clause in this election. So how they're going to go about making a differentiation between them, between the candidates themselves, and then the effect that that's going to have on the various candidates as they try to differentiate themselves without attacking the record of the other person. Again, that we will see. We'll see how it plays out. All of us will be here together, I assume. So, if you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support through PayPal or Patreon. Thanks all.